Hey everyone, I'm Rebecca from the Department of Revenue. Today we are talking about property assessments and what that means for your tax bills and what is a first level review, how to petition for a formal appeal, and then we're going to wrap up with how you can reduce your tax bill if you're a homeowner. So along for the ride today are our colleagues at the Office of Property Assessments, James Aros Jr. and Carla Pagan from the Board of Revision of Taxes. So up first is our friend James Aros Jr., who is the city's chief assessor at the Office of Property Assessment. James has been with the city for over 22 years, and he's been in his role since 2020. So he's got a lot of expertise in that head of his. So first off, James, can you help us explain, or can you explain to folks watching exactly what the OPA does?
Absolutely, Rebecca, and thank you for having us this afternoon. So as a city agency, the OPA's main responsibility is to fairly, equitably, and accurately estimate the value of all real property in the city of Philadelphia. And when I say all real property, I mean all real property. So that accounts for over 580,000 parcels of real property in the city of Philadelphia. And that's everything from residential to commercial to industrial, institutional, schools, houses of worship. If it's in the city, we estimate the value of it.
Can you explain exactly what an assessment is?
Sure. So an assessment is the OPA's opinion of value as to what a property would sell for on the open market as of a specific date. So folks can think of it similar to an appraisal that they might get for a loan from a bank or for if they're settling an estate. An appraisal in that case constitutes an opinion of value, and that's what we do. We do it, but we're doing it for all properties in the city of Philadelphia.
All right, let's talk about what else the OPA does.
Sure. So we let off with our main task is estimating the fair market value for all property in Philadelphia. Now, what that does is that your assessment and our estimate of value plays into the calculation of what someone would end up paying in real estate taxes if they own property in Philadelphia. There are some distinctions there that we'll talk about in a minute when it comes to taxes. But also as a department, we respond to concerns about market value and our assessments. So specifically within the House, that's the first level review process, which I know we'll talk about as well. Mm-hmm. We also administer the city's tax abatement program for new construction and renovation of properties. And we we administer some of the city's exemption programs. Some of it is done over at Revenue, which I know we'll cover. And then last but not least, which probably folks may not know, is we're the city's official addressing authority. So if a developer or even a homeowner wants to consolidate two properties or subdivide a property into 10 properties, they should be coming to us to get the official city addresses for what those new properties will end up being.
Okay, so I know that this can be a little confusing for folks watching or people outside of city government. Can you explain like what the Office of Property Assessments does not do?
Yeah, so our office does not bill or collect real estate taxes. So you guys over at the Department of Revenue.
That's us. That's us.
Likewise, we do not, since we don't bill or collect, we cannot remove penalties or interest related to tax bills, nor do we set tax rates or tax policies. So tax rates are set through the budgeting process, which City Council ratifies every year. And then tax policy is worked out with council, the mayor, and what we may or may not be legally able to do as a city. But that's an important distinction. I just want to make sure folks understand because there can sometimes be some confusion. Our goal is to just estimate the value of all real property. We are not charged with hitting a certain number or generating a certain amount of tax revenue. We give an assessment rollover that will then be used to generate that, but an assessment is not done in order to get more revenue for the city or to generate new taxes. It's part of the tax process, but our office is just to do those things we talked about as far as equitably, fairly, and accurately estimating value, and then the rest of that process plays out outside of our department.
Right, those are two separate offices. So you guys set the value, we use that value, the Department of Revenue uses that value to calculate a bill. And then we'll talk about all the ways that people can reduce that bill in the next further on. But
and then the last thing we do keep records of property owners, and we have a database for that. However, we are not the agency that would determine the legal ownership of a property. So if there is a question as to ownership, or somebody needs to research the history as to who might be the owner of a property, they should go visit our colleagues at the Department of Records, who would be responsible for helping determine the legal owner of a property.
That's great. Let's get to why we're all sort of here. Let's talk about the 2027 assessments. We all just got an assessment letter in the mail. Do you want to talk about that letter, the notice of valuation?
Sure. So just so folks understand, why revaluations are done. So when the OPA was created as a city agency in 2010 through a voter referendum, we've been committed to doing ongoing regular reassessments or revaluations. State of Pennsylvania doesn't mandate the frequency for counties on how often they should do revaluations, but the state does require counties to meet a level of uniformity. And the best way to do that is through regular reevaluations that capture market changes that happen throughout the years. So our revaluations in Philadelphia are done to ensure that our assessments accurately reflect sales and market forces, and then reduce value inequities among comparable properties, and ensuring that similar properties have similar assessments. Again, we don't do revaluations to generate a specific amount of money for the city. We create the values, and then those other factors are, as far as tax rate or tax breaks or what taxes should be generated, are done outside of our office.
Right. If we didn't do regular assessments, what ends up happening is that like one house on the block has been there for 40 years, the same owner. If we didn't reassess, they would just pay the same tax bill versus somebody who just bought at a current market value. Then there's like kind of an inequality there of what people in the exact same house are paying.
Yeah, potentially, sure. Another good example is, Philadelphia is a city of neighborhoods, and markets can change in neighborhoods in the blink of an eye in the city of Philadelphia. So you could have two neighborhoods in separate parts of the city that have real estate that is selling for the same value in 1 year. And 5 years later, one of those markets could have completely changed. If we're not doing revaluations, we would be valuing those two separate markets along the same lines, and there would be an inequity in assessments for the folks that are in a market that perhaps hasn't grown the way that other parts of the city may have during that period of time.
All right. So the assessments that you just got are for the coming year, right? It's for 2027.
Yep, those are the 2027 assessments. So we certify ahead of the year where the assessments are billed. The effective date of the assessment is January 1st of 2027. So that we're estimating what your property would sell for as of January 1st, 2027, in other words. And then the bills that will be generated from that will come out in December of this year, and to be due next March.
Right. And you would get those bills from the Department of Revenue, and then some folks don't get a bill. Some folks that bill goes directly to their mortgage company or their mortgage servicer, and the mortgage servicer pays the taxes on their behalf. However, you can always request a copy of that bill. We can put that in the chat, but let's keep moving with the OPA. Can you talk a little bit about the assessment process? I mean, it's 580,000 properties. I don't imagine that you're sending guys out with like clipboards across the entire city. What happens?
So we certainly do that, but because it's 580,000 parcels, we can't do that every time we do a revaluation, unless we're going to do a revaluation every 10 or 20 years. So what we do use is a mass appraisal valuation methodology, which is standard for our profession. And that allows us to systematically reassess all properties with the goal of ensuring that assessments reflect the current market conditions and any changes from the last revaluation. So I mentioned a fee appraisal earlier. We are doing a similar process, but mass appraisal means instead of doing it one property at a time like a fee appraisal would be, we're doing groups of similar properties at a time in order to be able to do 580,000 plus for any single revaluation. And then at the end, as part of our process, we measure how the assessments compare to the industry standards using standard performance measures. And we're measuring uniformity, equity, and also accuracy of the assessments compared to sale prices.
Okay, so just to summarize, your office uses a computer-based system that takes a look at some specific criteria, and then it spits out a valuation. And then you are double checking those numbers to make sure that they're accurate and that the numbers meet industry standards for accuracy.
Yep, that's correct. So we keep a lot of information in our computer databases about the characteristics of a property. And then we also have a database of tens of thousands of sales throughout the city over a period of time that we're analyzing and the characteristics about those specific properties. And then we use that to help generate the estimates of values, which are then reviewed by individuals. The computer's just not spitting out a number and sending somebody a notice. Those are getting reviewed to make sure that they're fair and accurate on the back end, and folks can make changes if necessary.
So we have a lot to cover, so I don't want to bog down the conversation about like what goes into that, like into the methodology. But you can find the appraisal methodology used for 2027 on the city's website, and we'll put the link in the chat. But the one thing I just want to like stress, it's the reason, we do an evaluation or revaluation every 2 years or so, and that's really important because it's what helps keep us abreast, like level with what is actually happening in the market. So like, and tell me if I'm wrong, James, like if a neighborhood like wasn't performing as well and their real estate values actually dropped, you would want that to show up in your bill, right? Like you would want regular assessments to reflect the true market conditions of your property.
Absolutely. And as I said, we don't do revaluations to meet a certain goal. So if the market tells us that properties are going down in a certain section of the city or values are stagnant and not changing, our assessments should reflect that. And every time we do a revaluation, we have assessments that for properties that receive reductions from what it was previously because we saw that the market may have changed in that area. So we've seen obviously a lot of growth in sectors of the Philadelphia market over the last decade plus, even through the pandemic. But we have seen some reductions too. So if the time ever comes where we see kind of some instances where a lot of things are seeing reductions or flat values, then our assessments are going to reflect that because we do this on a regular basis.
And then just at a very high level, can you share some of the characteristics that the OPA considers when they put a value on a property?
Yeah, so some of the most important ones that we consider are, for the residential side, the size, style, and age of a property. So how big is it, right? What's the gross living area, gross square footage of the property, and the lot size as well. The style, is it a large standalone, what we would call a single property? Is it a small row home in a neighborhood full of row homes? So we would separate those out. And the age of a property, is it something that was built in the last 5 years versus something that was built in 1789? Because Philadelphia is a very old city in some sections. So that's all factored in. Also properties, location and conditions. So location, perhaps the very most important part of real estate. So we look at location. We're not taking properties from Northeast Philadelphia and those sale prices and using that to generate values for Southwest, for instance. So we're breaking the city into neighborhoods and looking at location factors. Condition of a property, very important. Is it new construction or perhaps an older home that is extremely well maintained or recently renovated versus something that hasn't been updated in 40 years or so or is sitting vacant and open to the weather? Those are all things we factor into it. And then, we're looking at the sales of the similar properties in that area and, giving consideration to the differences between sold and assessed. So if you happen to live in a neighborhood where there's some older homes and some new construction, those new construction sales are not being used to value your older home. We're looking at sales of properties that are similar in your size, similar of your age. So that new home across the street is not, we're not taking a factor, applying it to that, and then trying to estimate a value for your 100-year-old home across the street. We're looking at sales of 100-year-old homes in a similar condition of a similar size when we do that for residential.
And can you maybe bust some myths for us? Like, what do you not consider? I think sometimes people have misconceptions about what it is you're taking into consideration when you put a value on a property.
Sure. So specifically, we don't consider number of bedrooms or baths. So we do consider total living area of the home, which I mentioned. So that encompasses all that. But we don't say, okay, 3 versus 4 bedrooms and apply a factor, we're looking at the total area for the living for the building. If you have finished space that is below grade, like a finished basement, we are not accounting for that because it's not considered part of the gross living area if it's below grade, unless it's its own unit. So in some cases, you might have a duplex or a single condominium unit that is completely below grade. In that case, we would have to factor that in and look at it that way. But if somebody just has a finished basement that's below grade, we're not factoring that space or that characteristic into the value of the property that we estimate. And the same thing goes for decks or swimming pools. If somebody has that feature, we try to capture it, but we're not adding or subtracting value for that, as those are, folks will often have those, and if we don't have access to the home, which most folks don't allow us just to come into their home every few years, we don't feel that we reliably have enough data for that to say what it could be worth. So, and in some cases, swing pool might be great for somebody, and somebody else might not see it as a benefit. They might want to cover it over and not be bothered with it. So, those are features that some homes have that we don't, but we don't factor that into the actual assessment.
So in some instances, so the assessments are broken into land value versus the improvement or the value of the building. If someone's in a condo and they don't necessarily directly own the land, why do they receive a land valuation on their assessment?
Sure. So state of Pennsylvania requires us to publish assessments and break it out into land and building allocation. If a property has those factors, if it's just land, we would just have land, but we have to show all elements of the assessment. And so for each type of property gets a different type of valuation when it comes to breaking the land out. So for single family residential, it's 20% across the city, which is a standard industry measurement. Different types of property, we'll see different ones. For condominiums, you don't have the factor of necessarily being on the ground, but when you have a high rise, for instance, you're basically building layers upon layers. So there's still a land factor applied to that, but it may be different than what folks see for a typical single family residence that it's not considered a condominium.
All right. So I think what everyone really wants to sort of understand is what happens once they get that notice of valuation. We've all kind of gotten the letter. What can people expect when they get this in the mail, which they were put out at the end of June of this year. So you should have gotten one already. We'll talk about what to do if you didn't get one. But in the meantime, James, walk us through what you would have received.
Sure. So as you said, Rebecca, the notices began mailing at the end of June. In that packet that you would receive as a homeowner or as a property owner, there is a cover letter which goes through a number of different details, but amongst things, it specifically explains the appeal options if you think the value is incorrect. There's the notice of valuation, which there's a screenshot for there. Again, just to be clear, this is not a tax bill. This is just information on what the city is estimating your property value to be worth and comparing it to what the value was in the previous year. And then there's the first level review form, which is the informal review that OPA handles amongst ourselves. And I know we'll talk about that in a second.
All right. So let's very quickly talk about reason that someone might not have gotten a notice.
Yeah, so a couple of factors as to why somebody might not have gotten a notice. If your value did not change, you would not have gotten a notice. So when a value changes, that's when the notice's evaluation goes out to notify what the new value is. If your property value did not change, you won't be receiving a notice. Most properties in the city did change in value, so most folks will be getting that. But there's a small number of properties that may not have changed, and those folks don't get a notice evaluation in this case. In a lot of cases, we'll have properties where it's a vacant lot and we don't have a mailing address, off-property mailing address that is different from the actual physical property address. So in that case, we're not going to mail to what we know to be a vacant lot. So that's a reason why somebody might not have gotten their notice. And also, if we have outdated or incorrect off-property mailing address on file, it could have been sent to that address that is no longer valid. And then one other thing I'll note that has just recently been, someone brought to our attention is that it could just be getting held up by the postal service. The postal service has an app where you can see what's supposed to be delivered to your residence on a specific day. People said they saw the notice of valuation was set to be delivered and then it never showed up. So it could be stuck somewhere in the postal system as well. But what folks see there on the screen is the most common reason that we know of why folks may not be receiving a notice.
And if someone needs to correct their mailing address on file, do they contact you, or do they call the hotline? What happens?
Sure. So folks can always go online to property.phil.gov and check out their valuation information and then any off-property mailing information that we may have on that address. So check it there. If you have one there and it's a valid one, see if your notice was sent there. If you see a mailing address there that is not correct, you can give us a call. There's a form online you can fill out, or you can contact us directly at 215-686-4334 to update that mailing address. If you did not receive a notice and you want to fill out a first level review form, you can contact the city's hotline at 215-686-9200 and request a replacement form be mailed out to you, and you can give them an address there.
And one thing that we missed one slide, but we don't have to go back to it, is property.phila.gov is the city's property website. And it is an amazing kind of trove of information about your previous assessments, any other reductions that might have been on that assessment, and a ton of other information. So if you want to look at your property and understand the history, property.phila.gov is a great resource. Atlas is another city resource that can help you understand more about your property. And that includes things like where you vote, when the trash day is, like all that kind of, like some really, really great things online that the city's put out. So we'll put those links in the chat. James, you mentioned a first level review. And you said that form comes with your notice of valuation, which, by the way, is not a bill. I just want to stress that the notice of valuation just tells you what the value of your property is. And then we use that information to create a bill. And when you get a bill, that's where it shows what the amount is, any reductions because you're part of some program. And then you get a final, like, sort of like statement of when this is due and like the voucher for you to send if you're going to mail in your payment. We encourage you not to do that, but it's a totally different piece of paper, but it allows you to calculate your bill for sure. Okay, let's get back to first level reviews.
One other thing to mention there, Rebecca, is on the notice you'll see what that information as far as any exemptions or homestead, what date that's effective as. So there's always a little bit of a lag because we have to freeze the information to send it out. So if somebody's not enrolled in homestead as of that date, the information that's on there could certainly change by the time bills go out. So that's why it's certainly important to know that it's not a bill, because you could be entitled to some of the relief programs that you weren't enrolled to at the time that notice was generated.
That's a great point, that it takes so much time for us to put that together, for the city to put that together, get it printed, get it to you, that there could be changes in between then. Yeah. So tell us what a first level review is. We haven't actually said it yet.
Yeah, sure. So first level review is one of the appeal options available to homeowners, property owners. Our friends from the Board of Revision of Taxes will be on to talk about the formal appeal process. But first level review is really an informal appeal process that we do ourselves here within the OPA. So with each change of assessment notice that goes out, folks will get a form that looks like this. There's some pre-populated information on there. So ownership, name, any off-private mailing address, and there's a barcode that is specifically associated with that particular property. And if folks look at the value and they say, you know what, I don't see that, I don't think I could sell the property for this much. I don't think that that's a reasonable amount. One of the options they can do is fill out the first level review. So there's some lines on there where you can tell us about the property, tell us what you think the property is worth. You don't have, if you're not sure what the property is worth, you can leave that blank, but it is helpful to us to know what you might think the property is worth. but we ask that folks give us all information possible that they could think would be relevant to their property. So that's describing it, that's sending pictures. If you have a recent appraisal, because maybe you refinanced within the last few years, you can attach that as well, and send it into the mailing address there. That'll get reviewed by the appropriate evaluator here at OPA. And then they'll go and make a decision on whether that there should be a change or adjustment in the value. And these can be really helpful because, like I said, we don't get into folks' homes every year or every evaluation cycle. So this is your chance to tell us about what's going on inside that we might not know or might have changed since the last time we were out there. And then certainly, if our records say a property was recently renovated, but you say, hey, I haven't done anything since the 80s, there's clearly could be a discrepancy in characteristics there. And we want to know that, it hasn't been updated. And, we'll review information sent in. You might get contacted by our staff to say, hey, listen, can I come out and just do a quick on-site inspection of the property just to verify that, what you're saying is correct. But we'll take all that information, we'll review it, and then we'll make a determination as to whether there's, in our opinion, in the opinion of the evaluator, whether there should be an adjustment to the value or not. And there's no hearing set up for it. You can send your stuff in through the mail. You might get a phone call. You might get a request to come out, but you don't have to show up for anything. So some folks don't want to go before a panel. This is an easy option that you can request first. The deadline to file is September 1st. So if folks are thinking about that, you have a little bit of time, but certainly don't delay if you're pretty certain that you think the value is incorrect. One other caveat that I would add is that in the first level review process, we are going to take all the information given to us, and if anything in our records needs to be changed or updated, we do that, and then we will create a new estimate of value if necessarily. That estimate of value could go down or it could go up. And I don't say that to scare anybody, but if your property is, say, in better condition than we think, but your FLR says, I don't want to pay more taxes. Number one, we're not in the tax business, so that's not something we can consider. Number two, if you tell us you renovated the property and you didn't take out a permit, which we've had folks tell us before, that's the reason why I bring it up. We now have to look at that as a renovated property as opposed to maybe an average condition and value it appropriately. So just take that into consideration. Anything that is sent our way, we are going to review, update our records if necessary, and adjust the value if it's warranted. But 99.9% of properties if they see any change, it would be a reduction. But I just want folks to know it's not a free roll necessarily where you can only get a reduction or a denial. In some cases, it could be an increase in value.
So I want to point one thing out that you said. It is very important that you use the form that you received because it has a barcode on it, and that barcode is individualized for your property. And that's why you can't just download one online, right? So you need to request it. Like if you lost your form that came in the mail, you will need to reach out to the OPA to request a new one specific for your property. So don't borrow your mom's or somebody else. Like use the one that came specific to your property.
Certainly not. And there, in some cases, we community groups, council offices, we will provide blank forms for folks that are at outreach events for them to be able to fill something out. But please do not repurpose your neighbor's form, or if you're an investor or a property owner that has multiple properties, do not take the form for one of your other properties and fill it out or try to put 5 addresses on one property. That barcode is specific to the property that is in that mailing. So if that gets scanned, it's going to be associated with that property, not whatever else you might write on that sheet of paper as to what address you're actually trying to contest the value on. So please do not repurpose ones that have an address and a barcode on it for anything other than the property for which it is intended.
I really appreciate all of this information, James. If you could hang on and kind of keep an eye on the chat, there are a few questions that if we don't get answered in the process of the presentation, we'll definitely pull you back in. So please don't go too far. But thank you so much for joining us. It was really great to talk to you today.
Thank you.
And so joining me next is Carla Pagan from the Board of Revision of Taxes. So if you have decided, like, no, I don't want an FLR, I want to go straight to an appeal, this is who you come talk to, right?
Yes.
Carla,
And
do
you
you
know,
want to walk us, like, do you want to tell us a little bit more about the Board of Revision of Taxes?
absolutely. Thanks for having us, Rebecca. So for the Board of Revision of Taxes, state law says that we exist. If you own property in the city of Philadelphia, whether it's a row house, a vacant lot, or apartment building, state law says that we can appeal our assessments if we believe the city made a boo-boo or got something wrong. So that's why we are here.
Okay, it's your legal right that you are
It's our
able
legal
to
right.
file an appeal if you disagree with the assessed value of your property.
Yes.
So, Carla, you're going to walk us through when it makes sense to file an appeal and what to expect with that process.
Yes.
So let's start with when to file an appeal. When should you do this?
Yes, thanks for that. We get a lot of calls. People open their assessment notice and they go, what do I do with this? So the first thing we always tell people, if you believe your assessment is higher than what your home would sell for, then you file an appeal. And then it's the homeowner's job to tell us, the board, the assessor, what you believe that value is worth. Some other reasons to file appeal. We have a coworker in our department. They've been living in their home for 20 some years. They found out they had structural damage. So now they're running around trying to get all these quotes on structural repairs. They're going to file appeal and attach those repair estimates to their appeal form. A lot of people file an appeal because, like the Office of Property Assessment mentioned, their square footage is incorrect. Maybe a homeowner just did a refinance and have a new appraisal report, or maybe they're a new purchase and have an appraisal report, and they notice a discrepancy in the overall square footage of their home. So we encourage those folks to file an appeal and attach that supporting documentation to the appeal. So that's a big reason. And probably a third biggest reason that we see is condition. A lot of, the old timers call us very frequently and they're like, everyone has these beautiful flower boxes and fancy painted front door colors, and they'll update the outside of their homes to mirror their neighbors, which is a beautiful thing. But then they'll tell us, hey, my kitchen is still from 1972, or my bathrooms are from the early 80s. So we also encourage those kind of homeowners to file an appeal, attach 3 to 5 pictures to say, hey, my home is not new or rehabbed or above average. I just put new flowers out front. Here's a picture of my dated kitchen or my dated bathrooms. So those are all common reasons to file an appeal. Yes. So that's the win.
Okay.
Yes.
And so can you maybe talk a little bit about filling out the form? It seems self-explanatory, but some documentation is required. Do you want to talk about some of that stuff?
Yes, definitely. Our form is 1 page. It's pretty straightforward. Obviously, when we want to know the address that you're filing an appeal for, if you don't know your OPA account number or don't have it available, you can actually leave that box blank, and we'll fill it in for you. And then we definitely ask for your contact information. All of your hearing and decision notices are sent by mail, so it's important that we have a good mailing address for you. And then we also encourage homeowners to put a good phone number and email, because very often the assessor may review your appeal and say, oh, I agree with this. And they'll try to reach out to you to perhaps make a settlement. So it's important that you include your phone number or your email, or both, actually. And then the other part that's most important, while state law says that we have the right to file an appeal, the board is going to want to know, well, why are you filing this appeal? If you believe this assessment office got the value wrong, what do you believe it's worth? So often we get these blank appeal forms where the value's empty or there's no description. So we're depending on you to tell us, hey, I don't think it's worth 300. I think it's only worth 250,000, and here are the reasons why. So you want to feel comfortable filling in the blanks in the form, and you can attach whatever you believe that supports your argument. Maybe you have comparable sales from Zillow, or maybe a realtor came out and gave you an estimate of what your home would sell for. Perhaps you have comparable sales from new recent sales of rehabbed properties in your block that you want to attach. And again, and maybe there's repair estimates. Maybe your house looks beautiful on the inside, but you got word there's this huge roof repair that you have to make. So you want to appeal for those reasons. So we do encourage people attach any pertinent supporting documents to your appeal form. It's beneficial to the board when they review your appeal, and also to the assessor.
How do you get an appeal form?
Yes, so our forms are not included in your assessment notice. So you have 3 ways to file or get a form. So one definitely is our website. If you do go to our website, phila.gov/BRT, the form on the site is a fillable PDF. So you can fill it out right there on your computer, save it, and then email that completed form to us with any of your supporting documents. So that's one way if you don't even want to leave the comforts of your home. Another way, you can always come down in person. We have a lobby with the waiting room with tables where you can come fill out your appeal form, grab some blanks for your neighbors or for your family members, fill it out. We'll timestamp a copy for you right there in our office. And then we'll take it from you. We're open Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. And the third, probably the second most common way to file is by mail. A lot of people will go online and print out the form, or come to our office or print out and take a form back home with them. Or even if you're out at some city fairs or council meetings, they'll also have forms that you can fill out at home, attach your documents, your photos, and then mail it in. As long as your form is postmarked by October 5th, it's considered timely for mailing. And I'll tell you, these last several years, people have emailed their forms on Monday, October 5th, up to midnight. We'll take them. So
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great.
If it's at October 5th, 10 p.m. and you're like, oh no, my appeal, get the email out as long as it's still October 5th and it's still timely.
So there's a question on that form about choosing between an oral and non-oral appeal. So yes. What is the difference between those two things? I know we are going to talk about what to expect for those two different things, but why would you choose one or the other?
Yes, so oral appeals are for the homeowners that want to come in or on Zoom and actually see the board. You'll put on your appeal argument in front of the assessment board. You'll also have the opportunity to see the attorney that works with the Office of Property Assessment, and you'll get a chance to review the comparable sales that your evaluator has prepared for your appeal here. And the evaluator will testify what their opinion of value is. So if you feel like you have a lot to say or really want that human interaction, you do want to check oral. Or if you feel like your case is complicated, definitely check oral. So when in doubt, check oral. Non-oral, or for those people, they don't want to be bothered with the board, they don't want to hear the city's comparables, they feel really confident in their value argument, in their evidence, and they're just going to mail or email this form in, attach their supporting documents, and then wait for a decision by mail. And most of the people that do non-oral, they already have an appraisal report. They have great pictures, 3 to 5 great pictures that show the condition of their home. Or they've attached this market analysis form that either a real estate agent or an appraiser prepared for them. But yet with non-oral, you want to feel really confident and submit good supporting documents, because that's your only chance. It's no conversation. The board's going to read what you submitted and render a decision from there. Okay,
that's a big difference.
It's a big difference.
Yes. Let's talk about what the process for an oral appeal. What can people expect?
Sure. So if you select oral, Every oral appellant gets a hearing notice. We mail those hearing notices to you 30 to 60 days prior to your scheduled hearing date. And then you get to choose. Do you want to come down to Center City and come into our hearing room and present your appeal? Or you have the choice to log in to a Zoom hearing like we're in now and put your appeal in that manner. So those get hearing notices with a clear date. You have a last minute time window to get in supporting evidence. And then you have a chance to come to a hearing in person or by Zoom. And you can ask questions of the assessment office or the board. And then after your oral hearing, you'll get a decision letter in approximately 30 days.
And
So
then
that's-
for non-oral appeals, I think you sort of walked us through the process.
Yeah, it's
But-
similar. So the big
Yeah.
difference is you don't know when your hearing date's going to be. The board sets that date internally and they meet to look over your non-oral appeal. So there's no hearing letter. The only thing that you'll receive from us is a decision letter after your case is decided. That's why it's critical to attach that supporting document to your appeal when you file it. Or maybe you're traveling a lot this summer and you get your appeal in on time. Send us the supporting information maybe a week or two after you file. That's okay too. Just don't delay.
Okay.
Yes.
And so I think that is a lot of information. I want to thank you so much for
Absolutely.
joining us today. We got a lot of good questions in the chat. We'll continue to monitor the chat. We're coming up at 1:45, and I want to make sure that we walk people through how to apply for real estate tax programs that reduce your bill if you're a homeowner. Now, this is specifically if you are if you are living in your home, you can still be like paying on a mortgage on it. You don't have to own it outright, but if you're living in your home as your primary residence, you qualify for these programs. So very quickly, and I'm cognizant that I want to make sure that we have some time for questions at the end. So I'll be kind of quick and we'll be monitoring the chat. But last was it 2025, we launched a combined application. Is it 2024 now? I don't remember now.
September 25.
September 2020. We launched an application for all 5 real estate tax programs. So that includes the homestead exemption, the longtime owner occupants program or LOOP, the installment plan, that's for folks who are over 65 or low income. If you're over 65, anyone would qualify to be able to pay your real estate tax in installments, and the 2 senior citizen tax frees and the low income tax frees. That's all in one application. You can still apply just for the homestead exemption. We have kind of an option for both, but we kind of encourage people to use the long form just in case you're eligible for stuff and you didn't know it. So this helps you, like, you don't have to think about it that hard. Just follow the prompts and then we'll let you know what you're eligible for. So very quickly, how you do this is you're going to visit the city's tax center, which is tax-services.phila.gov. In the lower right-hand corner, there's a panel for property. And that is where you can see that in the lower right-hand corner. In that panel, you're going to select search for a property. And what we're asking you to do is tell us your address. It'll ask you, is this your OPA number? You do not need a username and password to use the system. Like, you don't need to worry about that at all. All you're going to do is you're going to look your property up directly. Once your property comes up, you have this option to make a payment. In this demo property, I think this is probably a commercial property. This is not somebody's house. You can make a payment, you can look at any previous balances, and you can apply for real estate tax assistance programs, and you're going to select that option. And that'll take you to this page that gives you the choice. Do you want to apply for all of the programs at once? Do you want to use that combined app, or do you want to just apply for the homestead only? Homestead is like, you can apply for the homestead in like 45 seconds through this. This is mobile enabled. It's also translated. So if you want to use this website in Spanish, you can also do that. But if you decide to use the combined app, also in Spanish, also mobile enabled, you'll select the top option, and then that's going to kind of take you through a process whereby it asks you a few questions, It's going to say, hey, you need some documentation here. Can you show that you live at this address? Do you have a documentation to prove your ID, your identification? You can literally just take photos on your phone, upload those to the application, and you'll kind of get a confirmation at the end of all of the things that you might be eligible for. You can also save the draft. You don't have to do it all at once, and then you can come back to it in the future. So that's very, very quick, but we do have other demonstrations of this, of that website on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/PhilaRevenue. So we have tons of videos, tons of resources on how to walk people through that. Also, I always encourage people to reach out to your any of your neighborhood groups and your community groups. City council, they have experts. They are all very experienced with understanding how all these processes work. They are more than happy to help you. That's why we're all here. We've included this contact us page, so you can reach out to OPA if you need an FLR form, or if you have questions, call 215-686-9200. To reach out to the Board of Revision of Taxes, Carla mentioned, if you're emailing your form, use appealinquiry@phila.gov. Their phone number is there. And then for us, if you have account level questions, you can always reach us at revenue@phila.gov. But if you have questions about assistance, we have the same hotline as the OPA. So you can use 215-686-9200 for questions about homestead. You can apply over the phone, or you can request paper applications. We have applications in other languages, so we are happy to assist you, and that phone number can help get you the information that you need. Also, please, we encourage everyone to sign up for our newsletter. We only send you stuff that you need when you need it. That could be about tax rate changes, that could be about program deadlines, or a lot of the program income qualifications are set by federal or state levels. If those change, we make sure that everybody's aware of them. We just get out the information that you need to know right now. So if you are a citizen or in a community group, please sign up, and please let us know how we can help. And I think we will try to get to any of the questions that we didn't get to in the comments, but I want to thank you all so much for attending today. I know we're at the top, we're getting close to the top of the hour, but again, if you have ideas for other topics that you'd like to see, your feedback is always appreciated. We're going to put a recap of this webinar on our YouTube channel. Again, sign up for our newsletter, and you can also follow us on Facebook, X, and LinkedIn at PhilaRevenue. And also, if you don't know, this webinar is part of a series that we're doing this summer. So join us every third Wednesday. August 19th is an income tax refresher for folks who want to understand school income tax and earnings tax. September 16th is understanding business taxes, especially for gig workers. So think about those who are working for like TaskRabbit or Uber or Lyft, or any of the other sort of gig economy type stuff. We're definitely going to get into it for you. And then on October 21st, we have a session for tax and water bill assistance for nonprofits and places of worship. Although there are lots of taxes that nonprofits don't pay, they do have obligations in other ways. So we want to make sure that everyone is aware of those, and also the programs that can help you if you're a nonprofit.